Hey YouTube, in this video I'm going to be talking about one of my races in the season. This is the second set of races. So I was supposed to run 100, a 400 and a 200 in that order on the 1st of April. This was in Lee Valley again. This was called the Lee Valley April Open. And it was for all ages, including masters. So this one was a very different set of races to the first one, purely because what I experienced was very different to the first one. So I was supposed to run the 142, but I only ran the 1 and 2, which I'll explain later. So I came there this time with like a lot more months of training with my coach and experience. So I finally understood how to lift with my hips, land on my glutes, how to have a good start and everything like that. So I was not great, but I was in a much better state than I was in January. And I came down here with my coach and everyone else that I trained with, basically. A lot of us were competing, some of us weren't, but yeah, I came and then, okay, we started warming up and everything. So my coach was speaking to me, trying to go over my start as well. We didn't get into any blocks, which was quite sad. I never got to get into any blocks before the 100, but it is what it is. We did a lot of falling starts with me just trying to fall and start sprinting with my hips to try and understand how to not just lift with my hips, but land underneath me with my hips as well. We did that for a bit. I was warming up, and then later on, I went and I did my 100. I was in the race. I was competing. I don't know who I was competing with, but I knew most of them were relatively slow, purely because of how I was in the last Lee Valley, because they actually asked for your times. And I ran 12.2 and this time hadn't changed. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm probably going to be running against people who are running roughly around that same time, probably last year. So we'll see what happens this year. Or maybe they also like me and they haven't competed in a while. But whatever. One person I was racing against that I knew was someone that I normally train with. So I was like, okay, let me just treat this as a training session, because most likely me and him are gonna perform really well in this race. Unless there's someone else in this race that like shows up out of nowhere, this is probably gonna look just like how I would in training. So we get into the blocks, get ready, then we blast off. I come out of blocks, and I've said it before in the other video. Usually when I sprint, I enter the flow state for a bit. I entered the flow state for the 100 for 2 steps. I broke it purely because of how bad my start was. So I came out and I was literally at the back of the field and I was basically already upright. I think what happened was I didn't explode out with both legs in the blocks properly, because you're supposed to use both legs, including your back leg, but you're supposed to quickly push the back leg in front of you, and then that quickly reorganizes your body. But I didn't do that properly. I'm pretty sure I only really pushed off with one leg, so I was upright more. And then I just got left behind because had so much in my head. So I started running and I was like, okay, I'm behind. Okay, what am I going to do? I'm panicking slightly. Then I'm like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to have to catch up. I'm going to have to play catch up. So I just stay relaxed and I just start sprinting, and then I start using my hips, my glutes properly. I leave all the work to my tendons, and I'm just like watching my teammate who was in the blocks. He exploded out. Same way I did for my 60, kind of. And he was leading. I was like, okay, normally when I run with him, I'm right, like basically neck and neck. He's usually in front of me because I'm not really trying to push too hard. I'm just trying to stay around a certain level. I'm like, okay, I need to get to him and pass him. Okay, how am I going to do that? And the only way I can do that is by staying relaxed, which I keep doing. So 10 meters goes by and I just basically still in the same spot. I think 20 meters goes by, same, I'm like starting to pass people. 30 meters, 40 meters, and 50 meters is where everyone I just go beyond everyone else. He's well ahead now, but I'm basically right behind him. 60 meters, right there, I'm basically like, he's still slightly in front of me, but I'm literally a step away. 70 meters, but right next to each other, and then like 75 meters, I just go beyond him. It was kind of like how it was for most of my other races. Though this time there was a bit more movement from our opponents. So I didn't even notice everyone else in the race. I literally only focused on him. This is how I feel most comfortable when I'm running my races, in the back, purely because when I'm running all my races, I've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 races where, this is all in 2021, 12 races where I was at the back and I was trying to catch whoever was directly in front of me, because usually there was big gaps between everyone else because their abilities were different. I usually had races where I was usually near the back. I'm just trying to catch whoever was directly in front of me and pass them, then pass the other person, pass the other person. This was the first time where everyone else didn't matter, because I didn't have time to focus on them, because by the time I could even try to focus on them, they were already just behind me. I was just focusing on him. I was like, okay, let me pass him. I got close to him, and he was still kind of keeping up with me, but there wasn't much struggle. It was kind of like we were running different races. He was running his race, I was running my race, and I just passed him. And then from there, I won the race. I got 11.68 for the 100 meter, which I wasn't very happy with, purely because I knew I could have gone under 11.5, but my start was bad. And obviously, when you're sprinting, you never have the perfect race. You rarely ever do. But you very rarely ever have a race extremely bad. And that was the only race I've ever had where it was extremely bad. Like, nothing went well in the blocks. And if nothing goes well on the start, then you have to do a lot of work to catch up. And that's exactly what I ended up having to do. So I could have gone I could have gone much faster, but it was like, usually when I'm running, I'd be right beside him, slightly behind him, or in front of him. None of that happened. I was just behind everyone. And this included people who ran 12 seconds in the race. And when you consider the fact that people who ran 12 seconds came out of the blocks faster than me, and I'm pretty sure your muscles can only fire at speed of 8 meters per second. And if you're running 100 meters at 8 meters per second, it'd be like 12.5 seconds. So you got people who are running the majority of the 100 meter with just their muscles, which obviously contracts slower and wastes more energy than your tendons do, and I was behind them throughout the majority of the race. It just doesn't make, well, not the majority of the race, but like half of it, which just doesn't make much sense. So I already knew, yeah, I could have gone much faster, which was quite annoying. And I want to compete at Bucks for the 100 meters, which is the British University's college sport. I'm pretty sure that's what it stands for, where there's all of the universities in the United Kingdom, they all come together and compete. I wanted to compete in that for the 100, but I didn't get to, but purely because my time was so slow, and I was like really annoyed because I could have gone faster. And there was like the latest you could run a time to compete for it was, I think it's the 4th of April, which is today, and I don't have a competition then, and I wouldn't want to because I just had a race on the 1st, so there was no much point. I have a race on the 15th of April, but that is too late to be able to use it for the 100. So I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? There isn't much I can do. So I was really, really, really annoyed. I went to my coach, he spoke about it, and he just said to relax and just get ready for your next race. And I was like, after that, I was like, yeah, there's no way I can do the 400, purely because when I ran that 100, everything felt off. It didn't feel easy, because while I was around 100 meter and I didn't decelerate at all. Maybe I did, but I felt like I was running and I was still gaining speed, even at the 100 meter mark. If I did decelerate, it was in the last 10 meters, which was obviously a very, very difficult thing to do. Even elite athletes, like these are sub 10 sprinters, are incapable of accelerating the entire race. The only two people that I can think of off the top of my head that have done it is Marcel Jacobs and Fred Curley. I'm not saying I'm comparable to them, but I am saying that the fact that I felt like my race was just pure acceleration should just go to show how wrong the race was. But it wasn't much I could really do about it. I just had to accept it as it was. So I was like, okay, really upset. My start was bad. I got the video, kept going over and over and over and over it whilst I was eating. I ate first, and I started going over it, and I was like, okay, let me try and think about what my coach gave me before I did the 100 and see if I can execute that for the 2. So I went, I practiced, and then I did block starts. I did, I think, 5 or 6. I did quite a few. And I was like, okay, let me hope for the best. I drank a bit. Drank a bit of Lucozade to try and get my electrolytes up. Drank some water. And I was like, okay, let's go for the 200. And I got in the line for 200 meters, and I was like, I just want to go home, to be honest. I was extremely relaxed. After that 100, me winning, I was like, this 200, I don't know how it's going to go, but I was feeling like I'm going to be near the front again. But purely because it's using my 200 meter time from Lee Valley in January, which is 24.28, which meant I didn't think about it at the start line, but I was like, okay, most likely I'll be going against people who are running times similar to that, or maybe slightly faster than that. I don't know really what to expect, but I'll go for it. So I get in the blocks, mark, set, gun goes, explode out, and I start going around the bend. Funny story, in fact, before I even get into the 200. So on Thursday, I did the races on Saturday. On Thursday, I had a impromptu 200 with my coach, and I ran. It was 200, obviously, and he set me off and everything. Recorded it, and I got 25:12. I was a fun fact actually. In 2021, I actually ran at 25:12 because the wind was so bad. The wind was also bad on this as well, but that wasn't much of an excuse for the performance. And I did the first 100 in the bend. I'm so glad I did this 200. This 200 saved my life. It saved my life. So I did the 200. And as you go around the bend, obviously the bend goes like in this direction. And when you're sprinting with your arms, you're supposed to go in that direction. So your right arm is supposed to cross over your body and your left arm is supposed to go behind you. So you actually kind of run in the direction of the bend. I didn't do that. Instead of trying to go with the torque, I went against the torque in that sprint. So I was going like this whilst the track was that way. It was really weird, but essentially what it ends up doing is the harder you push, the more torque you feel, which slows you down, and the more torque you feel, the harder you need to push to resist it, and it's just an endless loop. So what ended up happening was, in that 200, I ran the first 100 in 13 seconds, give a bit more, I think it's like 13:26. And then I came off the bend, and then everything just relaxed. Like, I've just got slingshotted onto the final 100, and I ran that 100 and I think it was 11:08. And when I did that, I just blasted down the home straight, and I was like, this is how it's supposed to feel. I was like, I probably got a good time. And the reason I felt I probably got a good time, but it wasn't too good, was purely because of that final 100 that I did. Unbeknownst to myself, that my splits were like, there was a 2-second difference between them. I was like, what the hell? But that taught me that I needed to make sure I go with the bend instead of against the bend, because it's been so long since the last run on 200 that I forgot which direction my arms are supposed to go in. I don't know why I did, because it's not like I haven't done 150s before in training, but whatever. The one good thing I was glad about was that I'd practiced something that Noah Lyles talked about, which was running the bend really well. You stay near the middle of the lane, and then as you're about to get to the straight, you move as close to the line as you possibly can, and you just propel. You literally feel like a rubber band that's been released, because everything will just, it's like you're being held back around the bend, and then everything just relaxing, just slingshot off. And that's what happened to me. So, but let's get back to the 200. So 200, I do the first 100, my arms are going in the right direction, and I'm happy. I get close to the person on my outer lanes. I'm always in the outer lanes for some reason, but I get close to the person on my outer lane. There's two people on my inside. One person's already basically on my shoulder. I was like, what the hell? So I start putting in a bit more effort. And then another person comes up who has like extremely loud steps. I spoke to him afterwards, and he said that he thought someone was clapping. No, that was just his feet. So it was really easy for me to tell when he was about, because he was just dumping on the ground. I heard him come up, and I kind of saw him on my peripheral. I was like, okay, now I need to really put a bit more effort. Then we get to the 100 meter, and we get to 80. When we get to 80, the bend's done, and I slingshot off. And now it's just me and the two people off to my left. The person I got to my shoulder got quite quickly, and then the person who was stomping. But now the straight's here, so I'm like, okay, I can put everything I have into it. So I put everything I have into it, and then I just start going. It's kind of like we was running a different race. Everyone else just stayed still, essentially. I just disappeared here. And I'm starting to just like go away from everyone else. I'm just like, okay, this is a pretty weird. I'm not used to this feeling being first. It rarely ever happens. So I'm starting to look around, and I'm like, I know there's only one person on my right, and I never really saw him, so I don't bother looking that way. But everyone else is on my right, and I'm like, those few people, they should be quite close to me. So I'm like, I'm doing this, but that's actually kind of turning my head, and it was quite noticeable. So my goal lead captain, she actually screamed, "Don't look back, don't look back." Which actually, not the screaming, but the fact that I was looking back distracted me, which kind of slowed me down. But no one percent, I didn't know, but like everyone was way behind me. There was no need to look back. I should just focused on my own race. But because I kept focusing on whether they're going to catch me, so focusing on my race and trying to get my best time possible. What ended up happening was, instead of firing my hips and glutes properly, I didn't. So for the first 100, my form was immaculate, essentially, and I was landing underneath me and everything, and I'm going around. And then it was the same for a bit of the final 200, final 100 in the two. But near the end, where I was like, looking back, I wasn't able to completely focus on lifting my hips and landing underneath me and squeezing my glutes. So I ended up starting landing in front of me a bit, which ended up slowing me down a bit. Looking back on the race, I shouldn't have done that because the distraction wasn't really helpful. Because even if they did catch me, it didn't really matter, because what was important was the fact that I'm trying to get the best time possible. And looking at it again, if I'm passing you in the final 100 and you've already gone up to speed or gotten quite close to it, how could you make a resurgence at the end? The only way that would be possible would be if you was near the back of the race and then you just held onto everything and then you just suddenly just blast off. But if you was to do that, you'd be a 10-second sprinter for the 100, and there wouldn't be much I could do. Even if that did happen, like, what am I going to do, push harder? But it's just that usually I'm used to, when I'm running my races, someone being in front of me so I can like work towards them. If there's no one in front of me, I can't guarantee my best performance, or someone close to me, I can't guarantee my best performance, purely because it's a time trial. I'm not used to running races where it's a time trial, so I'm not able to put in my entire effort once I've realized everyone's gone. But that's just something I need to work on, which I hope by the end of my season I've worked on, because if I actually want to hit my goals for the 100 and 200, which is 10.5 and 21, I'm going to have to be able to get used to being in front, because these are the types of times that are like, they're not world class, but you're extremely close to it. And for my age group, they kind of are world class. They are world class. So if I want to be able to get to these times, I'm gonna have to put in a lot of work. And obviously, I'm gonna have to get used to not hearing anyone. There not being anyone near me. I'm just in front. But I've got more races. I've got another race on the 15th of April for the 1 and the 2, where I can again practice being, hopefully being in front, and just getting used to having a time trial, essentially, where I try to run my fastest. For the 100, like I said, I'm pretty sure I could have gone 11.5 sub really easily. For the 200, I would like to say that I maybe I wouldn't have broken 23 seconds. I'm not going to say I would have, but I would like to say, if I didn't break 23 seconds, the slowest I would have run would have been 23.1, because I really did like start to just put in a lot less effort in the final 40 meters, and I just also kind of started to slow down. And if I was to push through completely and focus on my form, I really do think a 23.1 would have been the slowest time I was able to get. But we'll see in the next race I have on the 15th whether that's true or not.
Oh yeah. Let's go, Jevon! Let's go, Jevon! Let's go, Jevon! Let's push it! Let's go! Keep going! Don't look back! Keep going! Finish to the end!
For these two races, I also got another thing to include. It's actually quite similar to the first one. One at Lee Valley. So the first ones, I had back problems because of stuff I was doing with my hips. This time I had back problems and it was bone. Or maybe it wasn't bone. I'm pretty sure it was bone. So I think it was a week before my races, I went to the gym, and I wasn't really supposed to be in the gym, to be honest, but I was like, let me just go, because I haven't gone in a while, do some stuff. And I was like, let me just go meet my gym partner that I normally see. And I got to the gym, we started talking. It's very easy to, he didn't even coerce me into doing this. I coerced myself into doing it. So I coerced myself into doing max load work. So I was deadlifting. This is like, doing max load work isn't the problem here. The problem was the max work I was doing. The reward to ratio of deadlifts is so marginal. It's basically not worth doing, but I decided to do it anyway. it's really just like an ego boost doing deadlifts. But I don't know, I did it anyway. Actually, like I shouldn't know if I did it anyway. So my max for deadlift was 180 kg, and then I failed that once, got it the second time. Then I did 190. I failed that 4 times, got it the 5th time. My back was already starting to play games here, but I was like, you know what, yeah, let me try for 200. Not even a. What's worth noting is that I did build-ups of 10 kg each time. So this wasn't very smart, but I did it anyway. Then I tried for 200 3 times and I failed, and I was like, okay, you know, that's it. I could have got it up because the weight rolled forwards, but that's besides the point. I tried, I failed, and I ruined my back. I'm probably going to include footage of the 190 kg deadlift because why not? I liked it, and I got the 180 quite clean up, but yeah. But what ended up happening was on the Thursday, the week, or on that same week, because I did this deadlift on Monday, on that same Thursday, I was going through the entire week. I could feel the back pain. I was like, you know what, maybe it'll go away. Hopefully the deadlift for once won't ruin my back, please. And it did anyway. So I was doing plyometrics with my coach, and I was doing single legs. So I couldn't do a lot. And then I stopped, and then I went to the wall to do some acceleration drills, some wall drills, and I got into the position. I lifted up one leg and I fired it down violently, and I just felt my back crumple backwards. And I was like, yeah, no. I went down. I tried to stretch it out, and it didn't get stretched down. I was like, yeah, that's that. So I ended up leaving early, because this was all during the warm-up essentially. I ended up leaving early, and then the next week I didn't go until Thursday, where I did the 200-meter time trial that I ran. I also thought it'd be worthwhile to include my 200-meter splits for this, because this wasn't a very good race, but it was an all right race. It was the better race I had, because this race, I think about it, I forgot to say this race was actually good enough to let me go compete at Bucks, which I'm gonna do at the end of April and the start of March, which I think is quite cool. I didn't get to go in for the 100, but I'm gonna get to go in for the 200, which I like that. So I've done many calculations for what the splits for the 100-meter splits for the 200 was, and I've gotten times all the way from 11:3, and I'm just like, looking at the field, that's not true, because most likely these are people who ran 24 seconds, most of them, so their times most likely didn't get into the 11 seconds, or if they did, barely. So, and because they use their muscles, not so much their tendons, their times can't be any faster than 12 seconds, because that's the barrier between 12 seconds and 11 seconds, just figuring out how to actually use your tendons. Isn't that hard? Which is why getting to 11 seconds is quite easy, but figuring out how to continue to use your tendons even better is what makes breaking barriers even harder. But considering I was going against field, I was running 24 seconds, and these are like 12-second splits for the 100, and this would just be consistent. It's really easy to get consistent splits for when you're running 24 seconds. The 11:3 didn't make sense, because for the bend, whilst I wasn't going all out, I was still kind of doing a decent amount of work, and I should have been leaving these guys behind, but I wasn't, which meant I was running slower than I thought I was. And after many calculations, I figured out that I was running a 12:09 for the first 100-meter. And considering that these are athletes that are probably able to do 12 seconds, or maybe just break 12 seconds for the 100-meter, this does seem more credible than me running 11:3 and everyone being basically on my shoulder for that final 100. It didn't make much sense. And then for the final 100, I ran 11:19. This makes more sense, because when I usually run 200 meters, the first 100 is average. The second 100 is where I really shine, and you just see extremely fast times from me. And 11:19 makes a lot more sense than 11:3 and 11:9 that I originally had the times for. That doesn't make much sense, because even if I was slowing down, I wouldn't slow down enough to be able to produce an 11:9 time. And I know this for 2 reasons. First of all, I'm faster than that, so that shouldn't even happen. Second of all, I ran on 11:68, and that final 100-meter felt faster than that 11:68, as it should be, because it was like the final 100 was basically a running start. And I did that final 100 pretty quickly. I did feel a bit of lag, but it was done pretty quickly. And since I was in front of everyone, I didn't have much thoughts in my head about trying to catch anyone, so I was able to actually focus on the race more. And that race was, I got to the finish like quite quickly. I felt like I could have got to it of like maybe 0.2 seconds faster, because I was like just really dragging it, like, okay, when are we gonna finally get to the end? But other than that, I do think that split was quite good. So I'm thinking for my race on the 15th, if I push a bit harder on that bend and I'm able to come out faster, then I'm able to come out faster and then push even harder on that final 100 and actually stay focused, so I can push harder without over pushing. I should be able to potentially break 23 seconds, or at the very least get what I originally wanted to get, was 23.1. If you like my video, like the video, let me know in the comment section below. Check the description, because anything I forget to say in the video, I always put in the description. And if you like my content, subscribe. Helps the channel out a lot. I post every 2 days at 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. If you don't know when that is, just hit the bell and then you'll be notified instantly.